coming to you live from my backyard again with all this green stuff. I'm sitting here on one of these patio chairs, and I know when I get up my butt's going to be covered in green. Gorgeous day, but man, this pollen's killing me. I waited till this afternoon to do this because I couldn't breathe earlier. I don't know if you have any allergies, but the pollen is absolutely killing our house. And speaking of killing, I went back to work Friday for the first time in 5 months. I spent all day yesterday in bed, and I didn't do anything at work other than stand there and answer the phone. But man, I am paying for it. I guess the body has a way of reminding us when we've done a little too much too soon. We'll see what tomorrow brings. That song that I played, that Nazareth song, Love Hurts, I don't know why I picked that, except I thought it, especially that one, by the way, if you watched it with that psychedelic 70s look, I thought, we haven't done anything like that in a while, so why not, right? But I thought, love really can hurt. And in reading this week's gospel lesson, you had to get to the very end. The very end of it, the very last line where Jesus says, he basically gives a new commandment is what he says. And that's when he says, love one another. As I have loved you, you have to love one another. I thought if that doesn't send a message home about how difficult this stuff can be, this stuff being following Jesus and being a Christian and all this God stuff, and Jesus tells us to love one another as he has loved us. And it got me thinking, he didn't say love those who deserve it. He didn't say love the people that love you back. He didn't say love those who in your own mind you feel that they're worthy of love. He said to love others. And I think that's really hard, at least for me. When I look back at my life, I thought, wow, it's easy to love the people that love us back. And it's easy to love the people that we think deserve our love. The hard part, at least for me, is loving those people that we don't feel are worthy of our love, that have hurt us, that have screwed us over, that have made our lives miserable. That's the tough part. That's the part that I guess takes it to a whole new level if you want to think about, how we're supposed to act and what we're supposed to do. And I think sometimes, forget about loving, I think sometimes it's even hard to act in a loving way towards some people. Some people, I think in our books, they just don't deserve it. The guy that cuts you off in the parking lot, does he deserve your love? I don't know. This one's tough, and I don't think I'm the only one with questions saying, I gotta love everyone? You sure about this? And that's when I went back and I reread this. And just to set the tone, and I'm not one for giving theology lessons or Bible study, but this is the night of the Last Supper. When Jesus is telling his disciples this is just one night before he's going to be put to death. This is that Thursday night. He's gathered with his disciples. And he's got to know what's coming his way. He's got to know that, number one, he's going to be betrayed by Judas. He knows, and in fact, in this passage, Judas had just told Judas, go do what you have to do. So he knew that was coming. He knew the disciples were going to scatter like scared sheep, if you will. We'll keep with that sheep theory like we've had the past couple weeks. They were going to take off in all different directions. He was going to be arrested, tortured, put to death in just hours. All this was going to transpire, and yet he's sitting with his disciples. And instead of thinking about himself, instead of thinking, how can I get out of this? Instead of thinking, this is what you guys have done, or this is what you're going to do to me, he tells them this. He says, there's one last commandment I want you to think about, and this is really important. Of all the things that he could have said, I think it's pretty profound that Jesus said this. You got to love other people. Just as I have loved you, you have to love others. And man, is it hard to act that way? I can imagine it was hard 2,000 years ago for the disciples to go and love those who put Jesus to death, but that's what he said we're supposed to do. And I think that's where so many of us, including myself, have have problems, and a lot of questions that, am I up for this? Can I really do this? And it's a challenge, and maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's supposed to be a challenge. One of the things our pastor, Steve Winkler, says whenever he does a wedding, and God knows he's done hundreds more than I have, is he tells the people getting married, he tells the bride and groom, we love feeling in love. We love feeling that sense of, he loves me, she loves me, and it's always going to be this type of bliss. And even if it's in a family where things are going well, we feel that certain type of love. And he admonishes, I think is probably the best word, the couple that, we're not always going to feel like this. Things are going to happen. Life happens. And there's going to be circumstances in our life that make us feel like we're not loving. They make us feel like we don't feel like this love. And what he says is, we can't promise to feel a certain way. None of us can. But what we can do is we can promise to act a certain way. We can't always promise to feel loving, but we can certainly promise to act with love. And one of the things that I thought about when he said that is that in weddings, if you've been to a wedding any time in the past 2 or 3 decades, you've heard it's usually a reading that a friend of the bride or groom gives, and it's that letter that Paul wrote to the Corinthians. And I just want to read it. Once I start reading it, if you haven't figured it out yet, you will. It comes from that 13th chapter, and it's verses 4 through 8, and it's, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And I thought, what a great checklist this could be if we read this. And if you have a chance when you're done, go back, if it's an online copy of the Bible, if you have a Bible, open to this chapter and replace the word love with your name. And take a look at how difficult this is, but what a great checklist it is. If I was to replace this, I would say, Rusty is patient, Rusty is kind, Rusty does not envy, he does not boast, he isn't proud. You can see where this is going, right? He's not rude, he's not self-seeking, Rusty is not easily angered. Yeah, talk to my wife. And he keeps no records of wrongs. Rusty doesn't delight in evil. I don't know how much more I can read of this, but rejoices with the truth. Rusty always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Rusty never fails. That is tough. But I think it's a great checklist for this week. And I don't know if we can hit every one, but maybe through the week we can just take a look and start picking this apart a little at a time. And if you're anything like me, you're going to look at this and you're going to go, wow, I got a lot of work to do. But the good news is that we're not supposed to be perfect. And I think the message for this week is just that if we can just show a little bit of love for each other, a little bit of love for that person that we feel is unloved, we'll be well on our way to taking the next step and where we want to go, where we see ourselves. Well, that's it for another week, folks. God bless. See you next Sunday.